You're tuning in to the Raised by Rentals program. This podcast will contain strong language and spoilers for decades-old media properties.
Join us.
Welcome, everybody. This is the podcast where we examine pop culture franchises of the VHS era. Improv, impromptu, impetuous, and impulsive news stories improvidently impinging on intellectual properties to impersonate real screenwriters and impressively imagine how we might improve our favorite movies, TV, and games. I'm Josh.
Now, Mike.
And we were raised by rentals. Mike, it's spooky season!
Woo! I like spooky season.
It's my favorite. I was trying to come up with some kind of like a, I don't know, like a little intro to make it like to talk about how it's like, the most wonderful time of the year. It's like, time for seasonal shopping and parties and just like completely impinge on all of the language that people use to talk about Christmas. And I'm like, fuck Christmas, man. It's Halloween's the greatest season of the year.
I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, I do love me some Christmas, but yeah, no, Halloween time, just the season itself is so much fun.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. And we always have a good time at spooky season time around here. Every year we have always done at least one Halloween special, if not like a whole series of them. I don't have the episode list open in front of me, but last year, it was last year, right? We did the spooky season switcheroo. Am I getting confused already?
Yeah, no, we've actually done that a couple times because we did the Revenge of the Nerds thing where it was like, we turned a comedy into a horror movie, and then we did the Freddy and Jason Bros Before Bitches, where we turned a horror movie into a comedy, which gave us the Slasher Camp series. But then, yeah, last year we did the Fright Night as a comedy, and then we did Mannequin as a horror movie.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, I usually have the notes open in front of me, but I was like, yeah, I feel like last year we did a lot of spooky season episodes. I don't know if that's actually true. It felt like we did a lot. I remember we put a bunch of episodes out in October after, like we always do, we end up having a slowdown in the summertime because like we get really busy and then we get behind schedule and we start complaining about being behind schedule and like, oh God, we got to catch up. And a lot of it just has to do with the fact that there are only a handful of things on the calendar that we try to schedule around or like shoot for in terms of we want to get an episode out, for a particular occasion. And we
Right.
always, we do like a Christmas seasonal episode, and maybe there'll be like a big action blockbuster in the summer. And, we've tried to do a couple of back to school specials and like Thanksgiving themed things, but the only one that I really care about is we have to do something for Halloween before Halloween.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
I mean, it would be a goddamn shame if we didn't get a chance to do something for Christmas, but like, if schedules went crazy and people were on vacation, Christmas is always, the craziest time of year. And if it didn't happen, like, it didn't happen. But if we don't do a Halloween episode, at least one, I'm just like, what the fuck are we even doing anymore?
It's like, damn it, that's a necessity.
I know we have to do it. So it's the only one I ever stress about. And then after Halloween, I'm just like, whatever. Like, I don't care. Like, we'll just do whatever the fuck you want. I don't give a shit. Uh, so thinking about spooky season episodes for this year, we do have a really fun Halloween themed episode that we're planning that we really want to try to get in, before actual Halloween. And oh my God, that one's going to be so great. Like, I'm super excited about it.
Oh, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. And it was one of those ones we didn't even have on the list. Like, we just, we took something else that was on the list and we pivoted. And then it was like, hey, what about this? And we were both like, oh, dude. I just got excited,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's going to be way more fun than the original concept. So, yeah, I'm super excited about that. But in the meantime, since we have this episode to do at least one more spooky season themed improv before actual Halloween, we were looking at our list of like, what can we do? We have a lot of like horror ideas. This whole season has been very much geared toward let's continue with new installments on things that we started before. Like we did the third installment in some of our original, horror series. We went back and did sequels to previous episodes. We even crossed over two of our previously unrelated episodes.
Right.
We did, and even the ones that are more thematically linked, like we did another improv ruin. And this one is another one of those kind of games that we've done in the past. We started it way back with our Whose Line Is It Anyway episode, or the Mousetrap episode, as we usually refer to it. And
Mm-hmm.
that was a sort of a random story generator episode. And we've done a few more similar to that. That's how we ended up with Yule Parish, our Christmas special from 2 years ago. And we've done a few more similar games. And this one was a chance to go back again. Like, let's go back and do another installment in a kind of series that we've started. This one a little bit more unofficial because it's just, hey, let's just do another one of these types of games. But this one is just for us. We're not going to bring in a special guest host. We're not going to use a random number generator. We're not going to throw darts at the wall. Instead, it's just, I want to challenge you with a story concept, something that I think that you would be good at. And we'll stick with the pop culture influence, like, or riffing off of a pop culture franchise rather than doing something totally original, just because we did a couple of original episodes, most recently. So I'm going to throw an idea at you for, hey, Mike, let's do an episode on X that's, I think, very much geared toward your tastes. And then I want you to
Cool.
take the lead to tell that story. And then on the flip side, you do the same thing to me, right? I told you yesterday, I was like, come up with something that you think that I would be good at, that I know nothing about whatsoever. We didn't give each other any heads up, and you're going to toss it at
Mm-hmm.
me, and then we're just going to see what we can come up with.
I'm nervous as hell, but this should be fun. Because again, peek behind the curtain, like, yes, while these are always improv, we at least usually discuss a topic, so we kind of know, like, okay, think about these themes, think about these ideas, when we're like going into an episode, like when we did, we opened the season with Escape from Earth. We both knew about Escape from Earth. We both knew, like, we'd seen Escape from New York, we'd seen Escape from LA. We'd both heard about what John Carpenter had planned, so we kind of at least had a point of, like, reference to be like, all right, this is what we need to be thinking about. So yes, it was all created on the fly, but we at least knew what we were walking into. This, I have no clue. You could just be like, make up a story about fucking Jeffrey the giraffe from Toys R Us, and I'm like, I don't know. Like, it's interesting and exciting and terrifying at the same time.
It's funny how you guessed it immediately. How'd you know we were going to do a Jeffrey the Giraffe
Oh my
episode?
god.
Although that actually would be really funny. And now that you mention it, I'm like, man, I wonder if we can come up with some kind of like a funny story or a horror story around like children's commercial mascots that we remember from when we were kids. Like, you've brought up like the Noid from Pizza Hut, and then obviously Jeffrey the Giraffe, or there's got to be a ton of them. Hell, all the cereal mascots. I feel like that's
Oh my
been
god.
done, but like there's a bunch of other ones we could play with.
Just McDonald's alone. Like, my God, the amount of mascots that McDonald's had in the 80s. And some of them were terrifying. Like,
Yeah,
let's be honest. Like, the original Grimace was creepy as fuck. I know it was pre 80s, but like, even in the 80s, Grimace was kind of spooky looking. But you had like the fucking Fry Guys and like Mayor McCheese. It's like, he's got a hamburger for a head. I don't like it.
right? And like, I'm just gonna say, and this is gonna be maybe the dumbest thing I've ever committed to a recording that I'm gonna like let the world listen to. But I used to have a recurring nightmare about the stupid hamburger helper hand puppet thing, or the fucking little, it wasn't a puppet, it was like a little claymation figure,
Creepy little bastard that he
Right,
was.
right. Like, I don't know why it was so fucking, like, it wasn't creepy when I saw the commercials, but then as a kid, like, not as an adult, everyone, not as an adult, as a kid, like,
Right.
I used to have these like recurring nightmares where I would like wake up in a sweat, and even at like 8 or 9 years old, I'd be like, what the hell? Like, it's just a hamburger helper mascot.
I mean, to be fair, it's a disembodied hand with a face on it, so
Right?
it's a little unsettling when you think about it.
Maybe I saw too many movies where like somebody had like an eyeball in the palm of their hand or something.
See, for me, the one commercial, it wasn't a mascot. Well, I mean, I guess it was a mascot, but it was a very niche mascot. The one that scared the shit out of me was back when you had all those party lines. In the 80s, it was
Hmm,
like
hmm.
the Freddy Krueger had one, the Fat Boys had one, like they all had one. Um, there was that really weird one that they would show on MTV late at night for Freddy Freaker, and it was a party line, and the thing was this weird yellow alien Muppet, and it would just dance back and forth, like, while the Freddy Freaker theme song was playing, and the thing scared the fuck out of me. Like, I was terrified of this thing. every time the commercial came on, I would cover my eyes because I'm like, oh god, no. And now I have an enamel pin of him in my collection because some other weirdo remembered him.
That's awesome. I also have memories of staying up really late at night when I was must have been 7 or 8 years old. Whenever I saw Friday the 13th Part Six, Jason Lives for the first time, and staying up really late, and then it must have been the same night or like within that same week where I was like up late and I couldn't sleep because I was like afraid and like laying in the dark. And I remember one night I ended up turning the TV on, and on MTV they were playing that fucking Genesis Land of Confusion video,
Oh my god, fuck that video.
and like just watching that in the middle of the night and never having seen it before and not really knowing who the characters were that they were parodying, and just seeing all the weird shit about
Hmm.
Ronald Reagan and he was having creepy dreams, and I was just like, oh my god, the only thing on TV anymore is like horror movies,
Dude, that video used to scare me so bad as a kid. I mean, I love it now. I still love the song too, but like as a kid, oh my god, those puppets were terrifying. Plus they were doing weird shit. Like I forget which one, but like one of them was like eating his own tongue, and there was like that terrifying scene where Ronald Reagan like wakes up in the pool of sweat, but he's just like emerging from the water.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah,
ah
right.
god. It was so creepy.
Seriously. Anyway, we got completely off topic before we even started.
That's fair. That's fair. But yeah, seriously, look up Freddy Freaker. I guarantee you'll find him creepy.
Yeah, yeah,
He's a
yeah.
spooky little bastard.
I'm gonna have to look that up in a second here. But just to get us back on track, yeah. So we're gonna go ahead and do the dealer's choice double or nothing double header special. And just to be clear, this is gonna be sort of like our Tales from the Cryptmas episode, where we both came up with an idea, we both told the story, but we kept it within the same episode. So this isn't gonna be like a two-parter where it's episodes like 105 and 106. It's just this one. So we'll
Right.
it doesn't have to be super long. It doesn't matter how long or short it is. Like we don't have to worry about trying to stretch out like a whole script for like a 2 hour movie or whatever. And since this was my idea, and I kept trying to convince you to do it, like, come on, man, it'll be so much fun. uh,
All the cool kids are doing it.
exactly right. First one's free. Uh, So I'll go ahead and get us started, and I'm going to say, Mike, that I want you to come up with an idea for either a movie or an animated TV special for a spin-off out of Return of the Living Dead that is focused on Tarman as the main character.
Oh God. Oh God. Okay. Um. Oh shit. Okay. Where to start?
Right?
Jesus Christ. An animated special, like that's just now that's all I can picture in my head is like the Toxic Crusaders, but like I'm picturing this opening where Tarman like leaps out of a barrel and runs at the screen as like his zombie pals run up behind him, like Return of the Living Dead, like kind of
Now that would be awesome. Now I will say though, I only said it in the way that I said it, and maybe it wasn't clear. I just meant like, hey, let's do like a Tarman spin-off movie. But at the same time,
right.
I don't want to limit it to like, oh, okay, Josh said I had to do a movie, so let's do a movie. I'm like, no, like whatever you think would be fun. Like if it can be a cartoon, like a animated special, a TV show, like whatever. Like let's just do something with Tarman where we spin him off, a character, who's dead and can say like one word, but like make him the main character.
Oh my God. Okay, so oh shit. All right, I think we're gonna have to pause here for a moment so I can think about this.
Yeah, that's totally fine. And yeah,
Oh
and the
boy.
caveat here again is because it's completely out of left field. It's like, yeah, we're gonna need a minute to like think about it. We're gonna need a minute to like maybe like look up some shit on Wikipedia or whatever, and we can handle this however you want, Mike. We can either just go ahead and focus on this one for a little while, or if you need like a second to think, you could throw your idea at me now instead of waiting, and then we could both just kind of like see what we can figure out. So however you want to handle it, it's fine.
I'm quickly looking up. I'm like, okay. If there are any details that I can find out about Tarman that like I don't already know, um, There's a corpse in the 1960s. Oh, okay, so he was one of the first ones.
An origin story, like a prequel, could be fun.
Yeah, it says the Tarman was originally a corpse from the 1960s, which had been in a morgue at the VA hospital and had been subjected to the trioxin chemical spill. The Tarman had been reanimated during the incident, but somehow the U.S. Army was able to shut everything down, neutralize the Tarman, and seal him in the pressurized canister with trioxin gas, drying out the body and turning the Tarman into a type of mummy. The canister was one of several which were shipped to the Darrow Chemical Company, but was misrouted to the medical supply warehouse, where the canister sat in the basement for 12 years. And then obviously we know the rest from the movie. Damn, this is gonna be tricky.
Sorry,
Um,
I got to admit, like, I thought this would honestly would just be like, you would be like, oh shit, cool, I thought about that 100 times. Here we go, you know.
yeah. I mean, the funny thing is, like, I've definitely thought of like Return of the Living Dead stuff, but I'm trying to like focus on Tarman here and like figure out how I want to approach this. Like, because it doesn't have to be a prequel; it has to it's something
Anything,
involving the Tarman.
yeah, yeah, anything,
Yeah.
anything, yeah, yeah. I mean, honestly, like, out of the things that we've mentioned so far, like, I actually think kind of think like a, like a Halloween seasonal animated special would be really funny. Like going back to those old Halloween specials we talked about when we did our We Love Halloween and Halloween Loves Us Back episode, where we were kind of, reminiscing about all those great network TV specials we used to see. Like I think it's called The Witch's Day Out, and there's like the Garfield Halloween special, all those sorts of things. That actually, it does sound like kind of a funny idea, but whatever you think might work.
Okay, so since these don't have to be too long, I'm trying to figure out, like, do I want to go silly holiday animated special, or do I want to go like a sequel with Tarman? Because I mean, technically they are doing a sequel. Well, if it ever gets out of legal disputes, they already showed the trailer. Well, the teaser trailer with Tarman dragging the Christmas tree. Um, so we know he survives the first the first movie according to new lore.
Oh, okay. I don't
Um,
think I saw that trailer, or if I did, I forgot.
yeah, they showed it last Christmas. It was a teaser trailer where we see Tarman dragging a Christmas tree in, like, it doesn't look exactly like the Resurrection Funeral Home or the Resurrection Cemetery, which is kind of a bummer. But you see him dragging a Christmas tree through the Resurrection Cemetery, and then he just kind of like stands and stares at the screen, like all in shadow as like snow swirls around him. Because the original plan was that the sequel, and it was one of those sequels that I fucking hate, where it's like, hey, forget the other sequels happened. This is the real sequel. Um,
Ugh, I hate that
which,
too.
yeah, it drives me fucking nuts. But I mean, if they do an Alien Romulus, I'm okay. Where they're like, all right, we know that there are other sequels, but this story fits nicely in between these two movies. That's fine. I'm cool with that. I actually really liked the way they handled Alien Romulus. But if they were handling Return of the Living Dead that way, where they're like, okay, this actually happens before part two, before the second outbreak,
Hmm.
then okay, I got you. But if it's just like, yeah, fuck, 3 through 5, even though 4 and 5 can fuck off. Um, it's like,
Yeah, but you want like at least the second one.
yeah, exactly. I like part 2 and 3. Um, but yeah, now apparently it's all in some legal disputes, because I don't know all the details, but I know, like, the one of the original producers on the first movie, he retained the rights for many years, and Beverly Randolph and Linnea Quigley were trying to do like I guess like a fan movie with Return of the Living Dead, called Trash's Revenge. Um, and I guess they got like Tom Matthews and like I said, Beverly Randolph and Linnea Quigley. I don't know if they got everybody that's still alive from the cast. I'm sure they didn't get Brian Peck, because fuck that asshole. Um, it's fucking
Yeah,
disgusting.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, like they basically were working on this, like, I guess, fan film, and then this other company bought the licensing rights from the producer, and that's how they were selling like so much Return of the Living Dead merchandise. in the last couple of years. Like we've been getting action figures from Super 7. There's been tons of like t-shirts and hoodies and like pillows and blankets. Like I have a big fleece blanket now that's a Return of the Living Dead blanket. Um,
Well, that's cool.
we got all that because like this company was like selling the products to like make some money back on their investment to create another movie. And apparently Beverly Randolph's company sued them because they were selling the likeness rights of the characters who were the actors that played these
Hmm.
characters, and they weren't getting any kickback for it. And it's like, yeah, you can't do that. You can't sell likeness rights of an actor. you
Right.
know, that's not allowed, guys. So apparently everything got put on hold while the legal dispute gets worked out. But the movie was originally supposed to come out this year. It's supposed to come out in Christmas this year. So, but from everything I can find, everything's just put on hold. It's kind of like when the Friday the 13th video game came out and it was doing gangbusters, and then they were like, we're going to
Hmm.
do the Jason X level, we're going to add Uber Jason, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And then Victor Miller and Sean Cunningham got in that huge lawsuit, and literally everything Friday the 13th got put on hold. So apparently that all got worked out, and now we're going to have the TV show, the Crystal Lake TV show coming out. But licensing rights for these old properties can be a bitch. So anyway, now that we're done with that history lesson, Tarman. What can we do with Tarman? Okay, all right. I know we don't got to do like these huge, huge long stories, because it's going to be a double feature here. So you mentioned animated special, and that's the first, like I said, the first thing that popped into my head was an animated special. We're talking about Halloween, so what if in, like, I don't know, Halloween of 1986,
All right.
we
Yeah.
got we got a Halloween special for Return of the Living Dead. And all I'm picturing is like the opening credits. I don't know if there's any legs here, but I'm just gonna roll with it because
Yeah.
I don't
Okay.
know what else to do. Um, so I'm picturing like how like some of those old like 1970s and 1980s animations, the openings would kind of tell you a little story of like what happened. Kind of like, remember the that show Wait Till Your Father Gets Home, where it would be
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
the kids would be acting out and the mother would be like, well, wait till your father gets home. And you'd see like the dad driving home and it was almost like a little story, like a little vignette. So picture like them showing some like the events of the movie.
Okay.
Like, have like these animated punk rockers accidentally opening a barrel, Tarman popping out, them like doing the Scooby-Doo runaway, like the zoinks, and take off.
Hmm.
Tarman and other zombies chasing them, and then eventually we see Tarman get his head knocked off with a baseball bat, and it goes rolling down the street. And we see Tarman's headless body go running after his head, but he accidentally keeps kicking the head and keeps chasing it until he runs right out of Louisville, Kentucky. And then we see the bomb drop in the background, obliterating everything. And now Tarman is on his own. Like,
Yeah, dude. See, that sounds great. uh, that's and see, I, I mentioned that, it's kind of on the fly while I was saying the idea to you, because at first it was just like, hey, do like a Tarman spin-off movie, and then literally in the middle of saying the sentence, I'm like, ooh, or an animated special, because the first thing I thought of was like, oh, that'd be really funny. I wasn't even thinking about like TV shows. I was just, for whatever reason, I was thinking, oh, it would be hilarious to see one of those like animated intros they used to do for comedy movies, like in National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation at the beginning, and like
right.
literally in the middle of a sentence, I'm just like, oh, squirrel animation special, you know?
But yeah, I'm almost picturing the animation style of the old Rankin Bass Frosty the Snowman, even though that's probably my least favorite of the Rankin Bass Christmas specials, but that animation style I love. So
Yeah.
like, picture that like almost very flat 2D look with like Tarman and a bunch of little kids Halloween night, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and again, now I'm glad you're leaning into that, because it definitely reminds me of all of those Halloween specials that we talked about in our We Love Halloween and Halloween Loves Us Back Super Gusher special that we did last year. You know, we talked about what was it, like the Garfield Christmas special and
Mm-hmm.
Halloween special and Witches Night Out and stuff like that. The shit that we used to watch as a kid, and I was like, man, that would be so fun. So yeah, like it was this weird thing where I was like, hey Mike, do this spin-off special, and then my brain started twisting into like, wait, animation, wait, Halloween special. So like I'm glad that you immediately went to the same thing. You heard animation and was just like, okay, yeah, yeah, like there's something there, like the wheels are turning. So I'm glad like we're going in that direction.
And and like for the purists out there, like, yes, I know technically Return of the Living Dead takes place on July 3rd and July 4th, and we're talking about a Halloween special. So Tarman was kicking around like a bum, for a couple months before Halloween.
Yeah, well,
We'll just roll with that.
absolutely. In fact, I think that's a great idea. Like, there's no reason why we couldn't do that. I love this whole idea you had where we do this whole like, intro. We could have like the funny theme song and kind of like tell the backstory in the little intro, and then we cut to, I don't know. We don't, or not even necessarily have to have it in the show, but we just explain that it's like, months later and it's like almost Halloween and Tarman has just been like, wandering the countryside and has he been like randomly killing people for their brains? I don't know. Like you tell me. But like, what if he ended up in like Salem, Massachusetts for their big Halloween celebration? You know?
Right. Well, and that's the thing. Like, I'm picturing it like one of those Halloween specials. So you have to have all the children, like the analog, the viewer analog. All the kids have to, relate to one of the characters. So it's going to be filled with a cast of kids. So
Yeah.
instead of the punk rockers that we had in the first movie, this will be a bunch of like little hooligans. It'll be like the picture. Oh God, have you ever seen the show F is for Family?
No, I don't think so.
Oh damn! It's a really funny animated show. Highly recommend to anyone listening. Netflix. It's Bill Burr. Really fucking funny show. But there's these two like miscreants that play with his kids in the show, and they're like the kids on the wrong side of the tracks. Like the one kid always has
Hmm.
like a full diaper, and the other kid has like a hat down over his face the entire time, and is like eating squirrels and shit. But I'm picturing like little miscreants. They got like a clubhouse out in the woods type of thing. Hell, we could almost be like the kids from part two, like where they had the clubhouse in the mortuary.
Yeah, actually, I
You
think
know,
I think that's a great idea, and I think that helps explain what's been going on with Tarman and like where he is. Like, explain it to the audience. Like, this is perfect. Yeah, we can have him like wander around. Maybe do a little quick montage of him. Like getting some country postal worker, like some mail carrier, one of those guys that like drives his own vehicle and like delivers the mail on like a rural road somewhere, and like we get him because he's not in like any major cities, so he's kind of staying under the radar. Yeah, and then we take him somewhere where now it's like fall or like winter weather, so you can kind of see what everything looks like. We can make it really pretty and all these autumnal colors and Halloween decorations, and yeah, and then you have him run into this pack of imps, hanging out in the woods, and they're like they're dissecting a frog that they just caught in the pond, and like now they've got it on like a like a tree stump and cutting it open with like a Coke can that they ripped up,
oh, this got dark.
yeah. Well, whatever. Like, maybe that's what I would have done. I don't know. But whatever. Like the point is, like we just show these like these little scamps hanging out in the woods, doing whatever little scamps do, hanging out in the woods, and yeah, they've got some kind of like a ramshackle treehouse or whatever, and they see Tarman, and they're just like what are you doing on our territory, little kid? Or I don't know, something.
Oh wait. You know what? You know what? Screw all this. We're gonna make it. We're gonna simplify it. We're gonna do what they would have done in 80s style animation. So we're gonna see, like I said, in the opening credits, we'll see the whole like chase with the punks. They'll knock his head off. He'll go chasing after his head. It'll be rolling down the street. He'll keep kicking it and chasing it, kicking it and chasing it. And then the bomb will drop in the background, and the like when we have the opening song, and I don't know what it would be, like Tarman, some kind of silly, some kind of like Tarman song. Um, but he goes like we see at the end of it, he kicks his head into like the sewer, the open sewer thing from
Hmm.
part two, and he like wanders in there, and then we see a group of kids that are like that's their clubhouse, like wandering
Oh,
in there
nice, nice,
after, and then we open with them finding Tarman putting his head back on.
nice. Oh
So
yeah,
like he's sitting in the corner, like picks up his head, puts it back on. There's like the birds, like
hmm
maybe it's brains like swirling around his head, like cuckoo cuckoo. But
yeah,
it's like, and they're like, whoa, a zombie.
yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. I know we keep going back to like the animated opening, but I just saw this too. Yeah, he's like following his head like down the street, whatever. And then right at the very end, you see it bounce. It's like bouncing like a basketball. You see it like bounce up at the camera, and then we do like a freeze frame, and they there's like a circle that animates around his head, and like the logo jumps on the screen, like Tarman Halloween special, and then the little head just goes brains, like all.
Yes, yes. Oh my god. So like, okay, so I don't know what the point of the special will be, but we got to have him quickly, like we got to have the kids get his trust quickly so he's not going to eat the kids, because again, keep in mind this is a children's Halloween special, so we got to make the big bad guy friendly from the scary guy from the movie. We got to make him friendly. But this was also something that you saw a lot in the 80s, because like we had the RoboCop TV show, we had Rambo.
hmm
um, we were supposed to get an Aliens cartoon, which is how we got the Aliens Kenner toy line. But that was not an uncommon thing to do in the 80s, to make toy lines or animated TV shows based on R-rated properties. I mean, fuck, we got a Police Academy TV show, and that whole franchise is filled with TNA.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, actually, that was one of the morgue file cutting room floor ideas. Like, behind this curtains for a second here, when we did our end of the year special last season, the morgue file, and we came up with the top 10 ideas that we're probably never going to do for an episode and like let people vote on them. But of course, there were ideas that didn't even make the top 10. They were they,
right,
they were the cast-offs of the cast-offs, and one of those was, hey, we should do an episode where we take some really really inappropriate, like very adult concept from the 80s that was really popular, but then we just design a whole, like, children's television cartoon and a toy line and a breakfast cereal and all of that, but and maybe this isn't like the best example, but for something like Blue Velvet,
right. Daddy wants to fuck. Sorry. Oh, that fucking movie. Um, but yeah, like I'm warming up to this idea. It's fucking silly and stupid, but I kind of really want to draw an animated Tarman now with a
right,
bunch of kids.
right.
We should have like when the kids find him, have like we have, okay, we're gonna have like the scaredy cat kid, of course, who's gonna be like, oh, and like duck down in his shirt with just the cartoony eyes like peering over the top. We'll have like the rough and tumble like tomboy who's just like, oh
hmm
cool, he's all drippy and goopy, and then we'll have like the leader of the group who is like, we should try to give him some candy. Like basically like they try to get him there to be their friend. And maybe they have like, those the gummy body part candies where it's like gummy eyeballs and
hmm
gummy fingers. So maybe they like throw him some gummies and one of them's like a gummy brain,
Nice.
and he picks it up and eats it and like gets a sugar shock. So it's like his eyes go spinning and he's just like, oh, candy. So now instead of brains, he wants candy.
Oh, dude, I got it. Okay, I hate to like take over the idea that was supposed to be for
No,
you,
go
but
for it.
no,
Run.
that train of thought just fucking cemented a whole bunch of ideas that were kind of floating around, and like, all the cogs just fell in place. That's perfect. So what we do is we have these kids who are literally hanging out in their like sewer HQ, like they're a bunch of unkempt, dirty scamps. The unspoken implication is that like they're a bunch of like homeless or abused kids or whatever. Like if this wasn't a kids cartoon, like it would be really sad. Um, but we have it, and we have one of them say something like, oh man, they like he freaking loves candy, like dude, like man, I wish we could get some more candy. Tomorrow's Halloween, we could get so much candy, but everyone in town like knows who we are, and like we can't afford costumes, and even if we just try to go out on our own, like they always recognize us, and this town is stupid with their rules where they don't want to give out Halloween candy to anybody who doesn't have a costume. Man, I wish we could get some costumes. And then one of the kids like, they see Tarman going crazy for candy, and they're like, dude, like we like let's we send Brains Boy or whatever here, like they don't know his name's Tarman. And so they hatched this plan to like send Tarman trick-or-treating for candy, and then like they're gonna take all the candy, but of course like it'll get out of control.
So so they'll be like hiding behind a tree, like telling him to go and say trick or treat, and he'll be
Yeah,
like brains
yeah,
or like
exactly.
candy,
Yeah, like we just
and
and then some like little old lady's gonna open the door and be like, "Oh my, aren't you scary?" And like give him a big handful, and all the other kids run up and they grab the candy, and they do the whole thing like, "Oh hell yeah, Tootsie Roll! Oh hell yeah, she gave Twizzlers or full size candy bar." And then Tarman's like, "Candy?" And he's like, "Where's my fucking candy?" Basically, so they're like, "Oh your candy's over there. Go knock on that door."
so they're using him to get all the all the treats.
Yes. And he looks great, and of course like some of the parents are going to be like, oh wow, like what a realistic costume, your mom must have worked so hard on that for you.
Oh my god! So yeah, so of course he's gonna be going from like house to house to house, getting all this candy, and like the kids will keep taking like maybe they give him the pieces that they don't like black licorice, and he's just like candy, and like he'll eat it, and then like he'll do the like the like the gross face when he eats the black licorice, and like stick out a green tongue and shake it back and forth.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my god, that's so good.
But what we should end up doing is we should have like so they're leading him trick or treating to different houses, and it's like okay, so where is the the foil gonna come from? So what if they get to the house that the general was at in the first movie? So
Yes,
and he's
yes.
like looking for the barrels. They get to the house and he rings the doorbell, and the general's like, Tarman! Like he like slams the door and like hits an alarm, and we see like a bunch of soldiers at like a nearby base. Like the zombie alarm goes off,
Yes, that's perfect.
and then they all go like running in unison to like get out a truck and like start driving into town, and like. Tarman's like knocking on the door, candy, and then the fucking army men show up and they're like, zombies, and just start shooting at him.
Yes. Oh my god. Yeah, no, that's awesome. I love that. And then, well, so again, I was originally like thinking very dark. Like, we have one of the people who answers the door gives him like a fucking like toothbrush and an apple, and then he's like, no candy, and he like pushes his way in the house and like attacks the person, and then like the kids are like, oh shit, like now there's like a dead guy in town that their like new friend killed, but like they don't want anyone to find out because like they haven't gotten all the candy yet.
Oh my god. See, yeah, I was thinking like straight up just like this would have been on the air type of
Yeah, yeah,
like PG level. But if we wanted to go dark, we could easily go
yeah.
very dark with
No,
it.
no, I love your idea though, because I'm always going dark, but no, you're right. Like we got to keep it like PG or G rated. So this is perfect when we just have like the general who's like panicking and and calling in like the fucking like zombie squad to like come and get the guy, and then the kids are gonna go grab him and like take him to the next house or whatever, and then yeah, obviously the military or whatever shows up, and then now you have this new threat, but the threat is just against Tarman and the group of scamps trying to like save him and hide him or whatever without having to endanger the rest of the town really, because that's what I was thinking, like, oh, zombie outbreak, but like no, we got to keep Tarman like sweet and cuddly.
Right, exactly. So it's like, yeah, so we have the military show up trying to chase him down. So maybe the kids and Tarman go like running off into the woods like under a hail of gunfire. But again, it's cutesy.
Yeah,
So like
exactly.
they're like ducking with their hands over their heads, like, and their feet are just doing that like that Flintstones run, like like really fast, while bullets go whizzing by them,
Yes,
and they
yes.
run. they run off into the woods, and then they're like, "We got to get you a disguise." So like, we can have one of them like run home, and he comes back with a sheet and just throws it over Tarman, and it's all goopy because it's sticking to him.
Yeah. Yes.
And they just continue trick or treating while the military searches for Tarman.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Oh, oh my god! But I don't know how this would culminate. Like we would need to bring it to like a natural conclusion, which of course would be that either Tarman gets out of Dodge, or like they convince the military that Tarman's gone, but really he's living back in the sewer with all the candy. Like hanging out in their home base. Being friends with the kids. I don't know how we would end this, but I feel
Yeah.
like I feel like that's the best way to go, is like that somehow they convince the military that Tarman's gone. And then he's really just hiding out. So
Yeah, no, I
I
think
don't know
that's
how we want to get there.
no, I think that's perfect. That's exactly what we do, and I don't know that we need to do it beat by beat because I just sprung this on you. No, but I think that's exactly what we do and actually the sheet idea is really funny because that way they can go out and do more trick or treating, and we've got more opportunities for like sight gags and
Hijink.
yeah, hijinks and just goofy situations while the military is running around town trying to find him. But then eventually, let's have it that like his ghost costume slips, like somebody steps on it and pulls it off right at the worst possible moment when like a jeep is pulling down the street and there's like a literal spotlight. We do that sequence where it's like he's caught in like the deer in the headlights, and he turns and looks at the camera like ruh kind of a thing.
And we can even do like the Tex Avery like a wooga thing. Like maybe they start shooting around him and his eyes and tongue bulge out and then he
Yeah.
runs away.
Yeah, exactly. But have like so it's like they have one of the kids like pick up the sheet and like, run after him, and then we have somebody say like one of the military guys, somebody who's saying like oh he's been spotted on Elm Street, like the kid in the sticky ghost outfit, like you know, like just have somebody say that because, and again, I'm not trying to like connect every dot here, but basically what we do is we jump forward to the kids. They set up a decoy where they're gonna like lead the military guys like out to like old man Patterson's farm where there's a scarecrow or something. They throw the like sticky sheet over it, and then
Perfect.
they do this thing where they're just like, oh no, here comes the military, everybody run, cheese it boys, and they run away, and there's the scarecrow that they run away from, and then all the military guys like blow it to smithereens, and then
Yes.
we do that scene where it's like a cartoon version of that scene from Predator when they just like shoot the trees for a minute and a half.
We should totally have like they end up throwing a grenade at the end and just like it freaking like it does the cartoon crater in the farmer's field. So there's like the big crater where there used to be like corn and a
Yeah.
scarecrow, and then we have like a cow that's all covered in soot and just blinking like ding ding ding.
Yes, yes, right. And then you see like all the soldiers, they start like giving each other high fives and like, whooping for joy, like we did it, boys, yeah. Like breaking out the cigars and shit. And then you see the general like elbow his way through the crowd. He's like, where is he? Where is he? And they get up to the front and like, one of the other soldiers, one of the other officers is like, he's like he's just like, well, we got him, general, like, we blew him to smithereens, didn't we, boys? And then of course the general sees the big crater and he's like, no, you idiot, like we needed him to like study the effects of the trioxin, or like or last time we blew him up, like he went in the atmosphere, they made more of those monsters, like you morons, like
And he like swats them upside the head and they're like "Ugh."
exactly.
The whole time this is happening, we have to have, I mean, this is just one of those jokes I'm thinking of, like, because it's a farm, we have like the rain barrel,
Oh
and
yeah.
we pan over after all of the military leave. We pan over and we see Tarman peeking over the side of the rain barrel. Just like
Yeah.
he jumped in another barrel to hide out.
That's perfect, right? Yeah, and then we hear the general like like he gets on the radio or whatever to someone else, and he's just like you know yeah, we got him, but there's nothing left. Like we vaporized him. I guess mission accomplished. I guess like they're not really sure, but enough where like they're gonna stop looking because there's no evidence, right? But then yeah, we see the gang of scamps who like run up behind the rain barrel and they're like, yeah, woohoo, like time for more trick or treats, or and then we jump forward and later on and we see them like back in their like sewer clubhouse, and yeah, they're all sitting around with like big bags of candy, and we see that they put like a different costume on Tarman this time, something that they again like a ghost sheet, something that they could put together really easily, like like they made him look like a hobo, like a classic hobo with like an old hat.
Or he's got like the robot box outfit where it's just like he's wearing a box around his chest and like a box on his head type
Yeah,
of thing.
yeah,
Um, but I love this idea of like they're just eating candy. Like we see candy everywhere. Maybe they're carving pumpkins. Like it's Halloween night,
nice,
and for
nice.
some reason in Halloween movies and in TV shows in the 80s, people are always carving pumpkins on Halloween night, even though that's something you do way before Halloween. But anyway,
Yeah,
that's just something that always bugged me as a kid.
same.
But we use that trope, so they're carving Halloween pumpkins, and like each of the kids, like we pan by and they're holding it up, and like there's like one it's like a silly face, one it's kind of like a spooky face, and then Tarman holds his up and it's just a brain, and they're like Tarman, he's like that just
Yeah, yeah, he like he like mugs at the camera and then like it does that like pinhole wipe, like where
yeah. Oh fuck, now I want this to exist, damn it.
See, I knew you would have fun with it. You were scared.
Oh, I was indeed, because I'm like, I have no clue what you're gonna throw at me. Oh man, that I need to draw Tarman with these kids. Like it's now it's just burned into my head. Like I
Yeah.
gotta do it.
Well, we're gonna need a thumbnail for the episode, so.
And I'm picturing the logo like spinning out at the screen, kind of like the old Batman logo, but it's saying Tarman. And
Yes.
remember how like Batman's head was over the logo? Picture like the goofy grinning Tarman face over the logo.
Absolutely. This is great. Like we make a 80s like cartoon, icon like Beetlejuice or the Toxic Avenger,
Right. Yeah. Oh my god, I want this to exist.
Oh man.
Oh shoot. Well, that was okay. So yeah, that you were right. This was fun. Um it definitely threw me at first, but it eased into it. So I went a little different route. So I think I might have misunderstood the assignment a little because I didn't go creepy.
Okay. Okay.
Um I wasn't for some reason I wasn't thinking creepy. I was just thinking like, oh, we got to each come up with a story for the other one to do. Um, but this is, I guess, it's spooky adjacent,
Okay. That's fine.
so it kind of works. Um, but I was thinking, okay, like, what are some of Josh's favorite movies? Like, what could he talk about that we haven't covered? Because that's one
Okay.
of the hard parts where I'm
Yeah.
like, I was like, oh, Predator. We did Predator. We did two different Predator things. So no Predator. And it's like, well, RoboCop. We already did RoboCop. I was like, huh. Well, Friday the 13th. So we are
We did
the
like 10 of
Friday the
those.
13th. I was like, fuck. What could I do? And then it hit me. I was thinking of Clint Howard, and I was like, The Wraith 2.
Okay. Oh God. Okay.
Come up
Okay.
with a sequel for The Wraith. Because if you remember at the end of the movie, Jamie Jake or whatever the fuck he had the two names gave Billy the Turbo Interceptor. So the Turbo Interceptor is still in play, and Rughead survived.
That's true.
So
That's
Rughead,
true.
he was one of the only. He basically was a repentant villain because he was like, I don't want no part of this, and he left. He got out of Dodge.
That's right.
So
Okay.
we
Okay.
do have two characters that still existed from the end of the movie.
Okay. I can work with that, and I think it works as a spooky season movie because I think The Wraith is totally maybe not a horror movie, but it's at least horror adjacent. We talked about it on the
Absolutely.
Boogeyman's Closet. It's
Hmm.
it's about like a revenge killer. And I think it's the same plot as The Crow. You know.
Exactly. Exactly.
Uh,
Oh god. I'm sorry, that just reminded me. One of my coworkers used to always talk about the Notebook,
Okay.
and I refused to watch the Notebook, and she was just like, "Oh, come on, you should watch the Notebook." And I'm like, "No, I mean, I watched the Toxic Avenger plenty, and it's basically the same movie." And she's like, "Wait, what?" I'm like, yeah, no, Toxic Avenger is totally the same. It's not at all, but I forever have linked those two movies together in my head because of fucking with her. So when you're like, it's basically the same movie. Like, yeah, exactly.
Good.
Oh Lord.
All right. So, okay. So you're gonna have to give me a second too, just like we did for the Tarman animated Halloween special, which it's
Yes.
so much fun. Okay, so I need a second to think about this. The Wraith 2. For anyone who isn't familiar with the Wraith, and of course I just had to look it up, and I'm like, oh shit, like when did that come out? Yeah, 1986. Charlie Sheen, one of his starring movies. Although I don't really actually think he's in it that much, really. Um,
Yeah, he's
and
only in like I think like 20 minutes of the movie.
yeah, yeah. I mean, unless he's in the Wraith character costume, but I don't know. Somehow I doubt it. But anyway, so yeah, the Charlie Sheen's character is somehow the returned spirit or something of a guy who was attacked along with his girlfriend by a gang of street pirates in Arizona. Yeah,
Yep.
and he ends up getting killed, and then he comes back as again, I can't even remember the fucking character's name. I know I said it when we talked about the Wraith episode, the Boogeyman's Closet. I'm like, what is that guy's name? Billy was the brother. His name is I don't know. It'll come to me in
I
a
think
second.
it's I think it was Jake.
Oh yeah,
Am
you're
I
right. Yeah, you got it. Yeah, that's right.
because I want to say Jamie was the brother before he died, and then when he came back, he was Jake.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Mhm.
because I remember calling him Jamie Jake when we covered on the Boogeyman's Closet.
Yeah, that's right. And I think it was one of the character was it the screenwriter somebody one of the I remember pointing out the piece of trivia on the Boogeyman's Closet episode where I was like, oh, like this guy he had used this name before, Jake Kersey. Oh yeah, the
Yeah.
screenwriter himself had used the name Jake Kersey as a pen name for some of the scripts that he wrote, and then he used the pen name for when Jamie comes back from the dead as Charlie Sheen. But anyway, we're like really caught in the weeds on that dumb little detail. But yeah, essentially, it's one of these movies that I love. I love this genre of. I always think of it as like the Holy Crusade movie, but it's the
Mhm.
revenge fantasy. Exactly like The Crow. He comes back from the dead and he hunts down the gang of criminals who killed him and hurt his girlfriend Carrie. And he kills them one at a time. You get Nick Cassavetes as the leader of the gang, and there's a couple of other uh, you know character actors that you would have seen in occasional, TV movies and stuff. And then of course you get Clint Howard. You mentioned him as Rughead. He's like the tech expert and the only guy with a brain, and the only one who
Mhm.
just decides to leave and not try to challenge the Wraith, as he's known,
Right.
as Jake is known when he's in his like weird like spaceman outfit driving the Turbo Interceptor custom like kit car. uh,
Of course, we can't forget Gutter Boy and Skank, which again is a connection to the Crow. You have the villain named Skank, and you got a villain named Skank in this. So there you go.
yeah, see, exactly. Yeah, they really are. They're very similar, right? Now, now that I've mentioned
they,
that,
they
like,
they actually are.
they're really similar. But yeah, so and then at the end, as you mentioned, at the end of the movie, Jake, he rides off on his dirt bike with Carrie, and they turn into like flashes of light and fly up in the sky because it was heaven or aliens or something. I don't know. I don't know what it was. They don't explain it. I guess he was an angel with a badass car, you know?
Who was really good at eluding Randy Quaid.
Yeah, well, I don't know if Randy Quaid was trying that hard. He was too busy making paper dolls.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Oh yeah, and
Oh
who
god.
plays the sheriff? Of course, his name is Loomis, right? Um,
Yeah. Yep.
but yeah, so at the end of the movie, the Wraith, the Jake character, leaves the Turbo Interceptor, which apparently is an actual physical car, leaves it with his brother Billy, played by Matthew Barry, and yeah, kind of flies off. And like you said, Rughead is still alive, so I'm just stalling for time.
Yep.
So what would we do after the fact? Now, I'm just going to kind of brainstorm out loud and think. Let me focus on Billy. So if Billy has the car, I think Billy would just at first be in love with having a cool car, right? And he was the
Oh
kind of
yeah.
guy who he was a nice guy. I guess that's what he is. He's your typical like nice guy. I don't think he could ever like get the girl because he was too brotherly. Like he was trapped in that friend zone. Poor guy, um,
Right.
and suddenly he has this amazing car that at this point, I think everybody in town would know what the car is, even if they didn't have any insider knowledge into what happened with the deaths of Packard and the gang. They would have heard the stories. Rumors are going to get around town about the Turbo Interceptor, and of course, Rughead knows about it. So, suddenly Billy turns into like hot shit, or he thinks he is, because he's driving around town in small town Arizona, looking like a badass. But we could have a little bit of fun with him maybe not really knowing how the car works, uh,
Right.
and I don't know, we can kind of just see that. But I don't know exactly where to go. I don't know if it should be that suddenly he has his own bullies in life that maybe he thinks like he's going to use the car to like go on his own revenge mission. And
Hmm.
again, maybe it doesn't go as well as it did with his brother, who actually had like a mission from God. But um,
Mission from Yed.
or
I
maybe
love it.
or maybe it'll be like a little bit of a not exactly a Christine kind of a thing, but like what if the car is kind of alive, or if the car is the one who's like, I just want to kill things, You know, and what if it's that like wait, okay, again, I'm just following the train of thought. Like, so Billy's like, he's tooling around town feeling like a badass. Maybe there's some other person in town, or maybe it's just Loomis at first who's just like, I see you, Billy, I know what that car did, I know that car killed Packard and the gang, and I can't prove it, but I know where that thing comes from. And then Billy suddenly is just like, yeah, Loomis, you think you know something? And he attacks Loomis, or the car is just like, yeah, get him, get him, get him. I mean, again, I don't know, but like, how funny would it be if the car was like this agent of retribution for Jake, but it becomes something that Billy can't handle, because Billy can't handle the fact that it's like an angel of death weapon, and all it wants is to kill things. So Billy is like, kind of stuck trying to find things that, like, well, this guy cut me off in traffic, so he's got to die,
Nice.
I'm not sure if there's enough of
Oh
a
shit.
story there.
Totally different direction than I was thinking.
Okay.
Um, I'll just throw this out there, just if because I'm totally cool with going the Christine route. That's really fucking fun. Um, but I'll just throw this out to see what you think about it. I was thinking traditional, like direct to video sequel, where we almost retread the same type of story. Like, how many times have we seen that with movies? Like, Class of 1999, Class of 1999 Part 2, The Substitute, and it's like the same fucking story. You know, um, so what I was thinking is, like, we find out that there was a gang that Packard answered to. Because remember, they like ran this little town in Brooks,
Hmm. Hmm.
Arizona. And like, what if I was picturing, like, remember the bad guy from Adventures in Babysitting? How he was like, he ran this organized chop shop,
Yeah.
like, cartel. And I was like, what if there was like a big bad and they're like, hey, why did our supply dry up? So they go to investigate, and they find Rughead working at a garage just outside of town. They beat the shit out of Rughead and break his hand, like, demanding answers. And he's just like, it was that Turbo Interceptor, man. It was the car, I'm telling you. And so, like, they go into town to try to find out who has this fucking car. Like, we're gonna get that car as our retribution for, like, fucking up our business. We're gonna take this one of a kind car. So I was picturing like having Rughead go back to town, like end up at Big K's and warn Billy about it, and then have like the new gang show up and have them like on the run from the gang. And while they're driving in the Turbo Interceptor, have like the Wraith outfit just start forming around Billy, like he has no clue what's happening. It's almost like Iron Man's suit, how it just kind of
Yeah,
snaps together, and
nice.
have like Rughead in the passenger seat, like, oh, what the hell, man, what the hell, like freaking out. And if I'm like, I don't know, and then have it snap all over him, and then suddenly it's like he's the Wraith, and he's like driving around doing crazy shit. And I had this scene in my head where like the gang tries to block him, and if you remember in the Wraith, he crashed into everything to kill it. So, but he's got Rughead in the passenger seat. So I'm picturing this slow mo awesome scene. Like, of course, this would be like a big budgetary scene. The Wraith goes driving straight at the blockade. You know, Rughead puts his hands over his face, like, "Oh my God, we're gonna die!" And it crashes in like a giant ball of fire, but we see like blue light around Rughead, just like in a sitting position but not sitting in a seat,
Mhm.
passing through the explosion, and then the car reforming around him, and be like, what the hell was that?
Oh hell
You
yeah,
know?
dude! No, I love all of that. Yeah, you caught me off guard because I was
I
just
know.
like, I don't know what the fuck to do with this. Like, hang on, I need some time to think about it. No, but I think that you're exactly right, and I fucking love that scene, and I love kind of putting Rughead in these scenarios where he's just kind of being dragged along for the ride as like he's the comic relief.
Yes.
Uh,
Well,
no,
and because that's another thing we would always do in those types of sequels is take a character who was a minor character and make them play a major role in the sequel.
Yeah, no, I think you absolutely nailed it, and I absolutely want to go with your idea. I think that's perfect. Again, I was just kind of spitballing off the top of my head, but given a little bit of time to think about it, yeah, this is exactly what we need to do. You nailed it. We have it that yeah, there was some other gang or some boss that Packard paid up to, and that's why they were constantly having to get more cars and more cars. It wasn't just that they wanted to soup up their own cars with like extra parts, and they were also building that one like really fancy like high-tech engine, and they kept talking about it how they wanted it for their own cars, but maybe it was really that like Packard wanted to deliver it in his car to Mr. Black, the big boss or
Right.
whatever. No, I think that's perfect, right? So you get these guys who come to this Arizona town, looking for answers, exactly what you said. They interrogate Rughead, who had been trying to kind of hide out, and exactly, they break his hand and get answers, and then the new gang, there's like four or five of these guys like thugs that work for Mr. Black or like whatever. Yeah, exactly, they go to like the burger stand, and they want to know, like, bring Billy out here, but they purposely do it at this crowded place in public because they know that Billy's going to come out, like, you know they're dangerous. Unlike Packard, who's just bullying people, maybe these guys just roll up like, pistols in their waistbands, and are just like, maybe it's a good idea if you just come out here and talk to us,
Right.
Um, and I'm thinking of them as being sort of like, Western guys. But we see immediately from this interaction that these guys are more dangerous than Packard ever was because they're just rolling up in broad daylight, again, pistols or whatever, or fucking Uzis, and they're just like, yeah, you want to come out here and talk to us, and even Loomis maybe hangs back, or maybe maybe they give Loomis a smack, and then and then they grab one of the girls or two of the people from the crowd who were just trying to have a burger, and of course Billy's gonna come out, and they're gonna tell him like, we want the car, and I'm not sure like what he would do here, like I don't think he would just give up the car, but he's got to say something like, "Oh, I don't have the car. I can't get to it right now," or "I don't know what you're talking about. Like, you're crazy. I never had that car." Like, the people just tell stupid rumors, and maybe Rughead's there, and he's like, "You lying? You like you had that car? It was that turbo." And he's just like, "This guy's crazy." And then even Loomis maybe speaks up after getting smacked in the mouth, and he's just like, "Yeah, like you guys are just following Porky Pies. You're just following silly stories. But then maybe Mr. Black, him and the boys, maybe they take one of the girls, and maybe we even show a scene at some point where there's this girl who works as like a car hop at the burger stand, and Billy, and he's kind of sweet on her, and she happens to be one of one or two girls that Mr. Black like basically takes with him, like, well, if you remember where the car is, you can come meet us out at, I don't know, there's like an old roadhouse or something, out on, Route 10, whatever. Come meet us there. And then, the girls are going to come keep us company until, the turbo shows up, that kind of thing. And then we can cut to they leave, and then of course Billy's gonna want to go and get the girls, so he's gonna go get the car or manifest the car or however he ends up in the turbo. Rughead's gonna try to sneak away, and he's like, no, you're coming with me. Like you knew about this organization, you never said nothing before. Like you never told me that there was like more to this Packard bullshit that you were mixed up in. And he drags him along. To your point, like they're headed out on the highway to go like rescue the girls, and I don't think Billy has a plan in mind. Like he's just gonna go there and do what he has to do. But yeah, on the way there, while he's driving, to your point, we see that Wraith suit like form around him in the car. Like Rughead freaks out, and then they get out to the old roadhouse or whatever to have a confrontation with Mr. Black. I don't know what's gonna happen, but
Mhm.
what I'm thinking is maybe that girl that Billy was sweet on, like I really hate to put women in refrigerators. So
Right.
maybe it wasn't the girl, maybe it was like I don't know, his school buddy or his little brother or his cousin or something. It doesn't necessarily have, but it being an '80s movie, like having it be like the car hop named Trisha that he has a crush on, it kind of makes sense.
Yeah. It and honestly, it fits, and especially this type of movie, because I mean, and the first movie was the same thing, it's the revenge fantasy, the power fantasy, all of that fits. Like we could talk till the cows come home about the problematic moments of these types of stories, but it is what it is. It's an '80s direct to video sequel
Yeah.
of a lesser known Charlie Sheen movie.
Yeah, exactly. And what I'm thinking is, again, just to kind of like ramp up the peril and like really give Billy a mission that's on par with what Jamie slash Jake was doing. Maybe Billy just goes out there to like, I'm going to confront the gang. And he goes out there as the Wraith, transforms into the Wraith. Maybe when he gets there, like the Wraith thing, to my point, maybe it kind of takes over. Like when he's in Wraith mode, he's just like, game on, bitch. And like he pulls out his like,
Right.
mega shotgun and just starts going to town, and the bad guys are firing back, and then they have like a shootout, at this like old roadhouse, and Rughead's like
Oh,
diving for cover. But my point is, we can choreograph the scene, but I'm thinking that like Trish doesn't make it out of this scene. So that now Billy not only has this guilt that he like brought her into this danger, but now he's just like, oh, you killed my girl, you're all gonna fucking die.
dude, I got it. I got it. I got it. I got it. Okay. Okay. This is fun. Okay. So yeah, same thing. And yeah, I know we keep calling him Mr. Black, but I don't know, in my head, because the last guy's name was Packard, I keep thinking of Porter because of Porter Packard in
Yeah.
Niagara Falls.
Sure. Let's go with it. Yeah. No, the only thing I was thinking of is I really want this guy to, to seem kind of like a cowboy type. And I know that I fan cast Lance Hendrickson in a lot of things, but come on, imagine Lance Hendrickson in a black
Oh,
cowboy hat and a black cowboy shirt, like all black, like jeans and cowboy look, like, and just talking. He would talk real quiet, whispery like this, like,
yes. Fuck yes. That's perfect. So okay, I love the whole thing. Like we do the drive up there. We have that whole scene with the explosion of the car. So we see that like the wraith power will snap into place when need be. But again, Billy wants to just be like, look, I just want to save the girl. You can have the fucking car. I don't care. Like he does one of those things, right? So like they go there. Rughead's terrified. Trish is terrified. Billy goes in and maybe he like holds up the keys, and we have Mr. Black or Porter or whatever we end up calling him. He kind of signals to one of his men, and they go to get the keys from him. So Billy hands over the keys, and then they let go of Trish. Trish goes running over and like kind of does the embrace thing, like she hugs onto Billy and is like freaked out because like this she's just fucking kidnapped and taken by armed men. um
mhm,
and then have maybe have Mr. Black be like, yeah, this is a really nice car. He's like, but you're not going to be around to tell anybody that we have it. And he just signals, and someone takes a shot, and we see like the gunfire. We see Trish's face, like she gets shot in the back, so she's going to die. And then
mm,
we pan to Billy, and he's already back to the wraith. Like so, the wraith thing formed around him,
mhm,
protecting him from the bullet, but Trish got killed. So
Yeah.
now he's got the whole vengeance kick and survivor's guilt. So he's gonna just start fucking wrecking the place. Get his keys back, get the turbo interceptor, and take the fuck off. So now it's an all-out war.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I love that. I think that's perfect, and I like the name Porter too. I think that's good. I don't know why I just thought of Mr. Black, other than he wears all black. But it would be funny if it's a very 80s name if his name was Blackie Porter, like Blackie Lawless from Wasp,
Right?
and he wears all black, like it's kind of silly. Yeah, so I love this idea. So Trish, gets killed inadvertently. Of course Billy's gonna have that guilt and the desire for revenge. Yeah, he's gonna like fuck up this roadhouse, and Porter and a couple of his key guys. Of course you know, we would cast them with some good character actors, and they all have to have their distinctive trait. Again, thinking back to The Crow, like there's always like the knife expert or something.
Yep.
So they're each going to have their distinctive trait, and then we're going to start to see Billy go after them one by one, just like in the first movie. Because again, like you said, as a direct-to-video sequel, we got to kind of just follow the same format. And just like before, we're going to see Loomis, and this time he's going to step in like, "Hey, man, I know we were fucking around before with Packard, but like this Blackie Porter guy's no joke. Like you saw what happened back there. Like even I don't have the clout, to help you with him." And of course Billy's going to be like, call in the state police or troopers or National Guard or whatever, and he's just like, "I don't think you understand who you're messing with." And Billy can't mess with him, but the Wraith can. So he's going to go on his mission. Loomis is trying to stop him, this time not because he wants to arrest the Wraith or whoever's in the car for killing Packard and the boys. Now he's like, "I need to do whatever I can to like stop this, because you're gonna lead to like an all-out like crime war in the state, and everybody's gonna be in danger." So Loomis is thinking that the stakes are really ramped up, but really, what again, the meat of the movie will just be Billy hunting down, the knife expert and the guy who always tells a goofy joke, and like all the silly,
Right.
the silly stereotypical thugs, like one at a time. The guy who dresses like way more like high society than the rest of them. All that kind of
Of
thing.
course. I feel like, of course, we have to have like Muscle Cheeks be one of the bad guys, um,
Yes. Yeah.
because he would 100% be in a movie of this caliber.
Oh, absolutely. And we should do that thing where like Blackie has his like right hand man, his like pet bodyguard, and that's Muscle Cheeks. So of course he's gonna be the last thug before Blackie Porter, and he's gonna be a little bit harder to take out. The Wraith has always just driven his car at like full speed into the other guy's car or whatever, but somehow Muscle Cheeks is going to be so tough that he's going to like get out of the car at the last second and like survive the explosion and come all out half burned, and like tackle Billy in the Wraith outfit and try to get the shotgun away from him, and like really be more of a threat than we saw in the first movie.
For anyone wondering who's listening to this and doesn't know who Muscle Cheeks is, it's Brian Thompson, who is like a great villain actor in so many movies. From the 80s through the 90s. But we always refer to him that from Cobra. So if anyone hasn't listened to Cobra 2, go check out Cobra 2.
Yeah. And isn't he one of the dudes at the beginning of Three Amigos in like the saloon too?
Oh God, I think you're right.
Yeah.
Like he popped up in a ton of shit. I vividly remember him, unfortunately, from Mortal Kombat Annihilation, where he played Shao Kahn, and it was just one of the worst movies ever made. But he was also one of the punks in the Terminator.
That's right.
Like yeah, he was all over this random guy. He wasn't quite Al Leong levels of like henchman, but he popped up a lot. Like he was in a bunch of TV shows, and yeah, you're right.
Hmm.
Three Amigos. I just checked it. But yeah, I mean, like he was in shit like Falcon Crest and Knight Rider, as well as like these these freaking movies. Oh, he was also the Renfield character in Fright Night Part 2.
Oh, that's right. Yeah,
So
yeah. You mentioned that when we did our Fright Night
great character
episode.
actor.
Yeah, that dude's awesome. Um, but yeah, like, I mean, I'm kind of rushing to the end here because, of course, we'll have some big like showdown with Blackie Porter. But I'm just gonna skip that just to say that, of course, we're gonna have Rughead along for the ride as like the sniveling sidekick the whole time. But he's also gonna be kind of feeding Billy some information because he's
Yes.
Jake was like an angel or a ghost or something, and he knew all kinds of stuff about where everybody was going to be. But Billy is just a human, so even with the Wraith influence, I think he needs his microchip, his character who's going to feed him information and give him, of course, back then they didn't have GPS, but maybe there's GPS like in the turbo interceptor, and fucking Rughead figures out how it works, and he's just all fascinated by it. We see the scenes of him inside the car, like bathed in neon light and like glowing screens and stuff. And
Yes.
but what I really want to do is, again, I'm just jumping to the end because it would be so cool if Billy fulfills his mission. I don't know if he gives up the car, I don't know if he dies, but whatever. But like Billy's mission is done, and then Rughead takes the car for maybe there's a third one of these.
Nice. I love the idea though, like of Rughead being like the microchip character, um, because like I'm picturing after they they escape from whatever ends up happening where they kill Trish, and for whatever reason Billy and Rughead have to take off. Maybe they kill several of the guys, like set off an explosion and they drive away type of thing. But like I love the idea of them back at a garage, Billy like pacing, freaking out, and Rughead looking at the turbo interceptor, almost like talking to it like it's alive.
Nice.
Being like, okay, is it okay if I check under the hood? Kind of like look at and kind of like almost communicating with the vehicle, like he's starting to understand
Yeah.
how the vehicle operates. And like that's why he's able to figure out like the GPS thing, and he's able to figure out like maybe there's like a turbo charge that they didn't know about, and he's like, oh yeah, right here it's a turbo injector, and then like they could go super fast, and like I just love the idea of him figuring out the ins and outs of the vehicle, and we can give the vehicle all these new powers. Like, did you know it had a Gatling gun? Type of thing. Like,
Yes, that'd be so great. Yeah, exactly. And that's why I think it'd be so perfect if he like ends up taking it over. And like again, I don't know what the big showdown with Blackie Porter is. Quite frankly, like I don't think it really matters like in the context of what we're trying to do. Like of course there's going to be, just like in Roadhouse the movie where you got to like go up and like, confront Mr. Wesley at the end of the movie after you
right.
fight through all the goons. And but yeah, I kind of feel like I want Billy to he either has to just die, like, he saves the day and finally takes down, Blackie Porter, but doesn't make it out. And then, Rughead takes on the mantle. Or I also equally like the idea of like, he's like, look, I don't want this type of life. Like, the car is great, but, I never wanted to end up like my brother, and I did anyway. So, like, this can't be my life. And he literally just like, gets on a bus and like gets out of town and leaves Rughead behind with, the turbo interceptor. And maybe you just see the scene of like Rughead just take off his glasses and like look real serious all of a sudden, and then like the helmet forms around his face, and then cut to black, you
Yes.
know?
Fuck yes.
Oh man. And if we did do a third one, it would be they would have no budget for it, but it would be awesome if we could like, take him to New York City and have him like, go up the chain of like organized crime, like, back to some like Italian like, mobster family in New York.
Right. And it would be one of those things where because they didn't have the budget for it, like maybe by this, and it would be years after this movie. So it would be like, let's say this movie came out direct to video in like 1989 or something, a couple years after the first one. And then, it's like 1996, we do like the third movie, and like Clint Howard's a lot older. Um, but they wouldn't have the actual turbo interceptor anymore, so they make like a really bad replica of it, and it would be like clearly fiberglass on top of a Corvette. you know like
Yes.
like they're driving around this, it vaguely looks like the turbo interceptor, but it's not right.
Yeah, exactly. And they keep talking about how they're like in New York hunting down the mob, but like they don't have money to do that, so they're filming in like the Ontario suburbs somewhere, and occasionally just cutting to
Yes.
like either like a matte painting of a skyscraper, or it's just like the same. It's the only photograph they can afford to buy for the movie, so we just keep seeing it over and over again. You know?
Yes.
Oh man, this was
Oh my
fun.
god.
I think we both just really kind of. I used the analogy already. We both just kind of stared these ideas, in the face like deer in the headlights at first, just like, oh fuck, I don't know what to do with this. Shit. Yeah. but, but I think we got there.
Oh yeah, yeah, and again, because of the nature of this episode, like, yeah, it's not a fleshed out, like, fully fleshed out story. So yeah, I mean, like, if people listening are like, hey, we actually want the Wraith too, like, I'm sure we could flesh it out. Um, but I mean, it is this for the purposes of this episode, this works perfectly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's really fun. Yeah, and I like that it's just like short and simple. We got in, we got out. I think it was great, and it was a little bit easier, I think, for me to just kind of like I kind of felt like I knew some ideas to do at Tarman because I had a little bit of time to think about it ahead of time. I
Hmm.
wasn't necessarily thinking about an animated special, but I was sort of thinking it would be funny to do something funny, like comedic would be the way to
Right.
go. So that made a lot of sense, and it was easy for me to be like, well, here's what I would do, and kind of help to hone in on something. So I think by making that recommendation, it really helped. And then the same is true for you. Like I was just kind of like, all right, I'm just gonna follow this train of logic until I hit a wall, and then you were like, okay, well, hang on a second, like because you had
Right.
at least one night to think about it. I think your idea made a lot more sense because okay, fine, like again, if I could have hit pause for an hour and go sit somewhere and noodle it, like I
Yep.
might have gotten to the same conclusion, but I was just like, fuck, I don't know. So like I'm totally cool with like going with that idea.
What's funny is like last night I was sitting at work thinking about like what do I want to challenge you with, and again because I wasn't thinking spoopy season for whatever reason. I was thinking like any property that you would be familiar with. I didn't even think outside of movies. Like now that like we've been talking, there were so many other ideas bouncing through my head that I'm like, why didn't I tap into comic books? There's so many things I could have tapped into. Um, but yeah, last night I was just like, "Fuck, movies," and like I said at the earlier in the episode, I was like, Predator, we did that, RoboCop, we did that, like going through all the stuff we did, and then I landed on the Wraith. I was trying to think of like movies you picked for the Boogeyman's Closet. Fucking Pulse, no, there's nothing there. Like the Lady in
Wow.
White, no, there's really nothing there. So I was like, the Wraith. And this was like at 5 in the morning last night. So I get out at 6 a.m. So at like 5 in the morning, I landed on what would we do with the Wraith? Fuck. How did the Wraith end again? And I'm like quickly looking it up, like doing a Wikipedia search and like, oh yeah, okay, yeah. So Billy was still okay. Yeah. Fuck. This'll work. Let's go. It's just, it was so quickly decided that I'm glad we were able to do something with
Absolutely. Again, I actually had another idea when we originally came up with this. Something that I think I mentioned already would have been an original idea, and I still really want to do it. So I hope this was fun enough that people like it, that you liked it, that we would want to revisit the idea, because the other one I think would be a lot of fun. And maybe there's even a whole episode in some of these. Like, I don't know. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. But yeah, this was definitely, I think, a fun experiment.
Oh hell yeah. And honestly, like I do want to do another episode very similar to the Whose Improv Is It Anyway, where we do random themes and tropes and things that we just have to make work. I think that we could even do that in the future where we do holiday themed ones, where it could be like we could ask people
Hmm.
on the Facebook feed or whatever, asking them like, okay, give us your favorite, horror genres, or give us like around Christmas time, give us your favorite Christmas movies and specials, and like we could kind of do that as the property, and then pick like some tropes that we have to use. I really had a lot of fun with the Who's Improv Is It Anyway, even though it was like our longest episode ever because we had to record it over the course of 2 days. And they weren't back to back, which made it harder because
Right?
it was like a couple days apart. So we're like, fuck, where were we? Um, so but yeah, I think this is kind of in that same vein. And I definitely like it. Like I like the surprise of not knowing what we're gonna get.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a lot of fun. Yeah, and yeah, again, every time we do one of these games, it's always nerve-wracking. I'm literally sitting here sweating. We get
Right.
really nervous, but they're fun to do because it keeps us on our toes. And I can't help but wonder if sometimes people tune into this show just to like listen to us squirm, you know.
Right.
There's maybe a little bit of like a Schadenfreude in listening to two people just be like, "Hey, let's just come up with something and like see what the fuck happens." I don't know, you know. And I don't know, like you guys tell us out there if you like listening to the episodes where it's obvious that we're flailing around and you're just waiting for that crash and burn episode that we keep hinting at that might happen eventually, you know.
Exactly. Because that's the thing. It is fucking terrifying when you're just like, like, what am I going to do? I don't fucking know. Oh, God, I got to come up with something. So it's fun, though.
It is. It is. I can't believe we came up with uh, an animated Halloween special for Tarman and the fucking Wraith too. But it also seems like such a fucking no-brainer. Like, why was there never a Wraith 2 direct-to-video sequel?
Well, and that's the thing. Like, apparently, I know that because I looked it up. I was like, oh my God, is there a Wraith 2? There was apparently an album that was kind of like a proof of concept thing, like a soundtrack. And then there's some artist who did a rendition. I thought this looked cool, where it was the Wraith 2 Vengeance Rising, and it's a female Wraith on a motorcycle instead of the Turbo Interceptor.
Oh, that's cool.
And I was like, that's and that feels like a 90s sequel. That totally feels like, we have this movie in the 80s. Let's do a direct to video sequel. And it feels like something that they would do. Be like, all right, the Wraith costume was badass, but let's do a motorcycle because that's in now. Let's have like one of those little crotch rocket motorcycles. And what if it's like
Yes.
a badass chick, she's got like a machine gun. Like I could totally hear the writer's room with this.
Oh, dude, like you're saying it out loud, and I'm like, fuck, man, like you should have mentioned that. Shit, we should do that. It's like awesome. Yeah.
Right?
It's got to be called like the subtitle. It's gonna be called like the Wraith Hell on Wheels, you know.
Right, yes, yes.
And there's got to be like a devil version that we introduce as the villain, who's like the supernatural antagonist. And it's a sexy chick, but her Wraith outfit is all bright red, and it looks more organic than like metal, you know.
Dude, I kind of love this idea. Like,
Right?
what the fuck? That's kind of fun. Like, oh, damn. I kind of wish we had to come up with that.
I know. See, this is what I'm saying. Like, if I had just been able to walk away for like an hour and think about it, like maybe we could have went here. But I'm happy with what we did, though. I really do like the idea of the sequel that just retreads the ground as the first movie, because like you said, that's very much in the vein of these types of movies from the '80s. So I think it's very appropriate. But had we gotten into the '90s, there definitely would have been like girl on girl, angel and devil, biker action.
Dude, and of course it would have taken place somewhere completely different. Like this was Arizona. This one would be like in California or something. It would just be like, it's in San Diego, like driving through streets, fucking palm trees everywhere. Like it just, yeah, it would be fucking
Oh yeah,
hilarious.
no, it would have been if they did it so '90s, it would have been, yeah, exactly, some California town, but of course the town would have been called like Revelation California or Inferno California or something stupid. Like it's like they just really lean into the pseudo biblical themes, like really on the nose, you know.
Yes, that's awesome.
Oh man, I love it. Okay, so yes, this is a lot of fun, Mike. So thanks for coming along on the ride of our very first, hopefully not the last, of our dealer's choice double or nothing double header. I think this could be a cool new series.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed this. It definitely, like I said, it definitely made me nervous, but I ended up really having fun. So
Yeah, awesome.
totally down for more.
Absolutely. So, all right, let's go ahead and get out of here while the getting's good. As always, thanks everyone for tuning in to the Raised by Rentals program. Look for more at raisedbyrentals.com, at Raised by Rentals on the socials. Go ahead and check out our back catalog where we have a lot of episodes where we revisit 80s and 90s properties and add our sequels to the mix, or turn beloved children's properties into horror movies, or turn horror movies into brand new children's properties. Of course, we belong to the Rad Pantheon, a super team of podcasters, artists, musicians, all sorts of creative people spreading the gospel of rad stuff. So go check out more creative projects at radpantheon.com. If you like this show, there's definitely a chance that you're going to like the other projects at radpantheon.com. What about you, Mike? What do you got going on?
Well, we got the Boogeyman's Closet is back up and running. Just put out our newest episode, the Ghoulies 2. Unfortunately, it was all screwed up, but you'll hear that when you listen to it. And then we have Insidious should be out before this episode comes out, and possibly even American Gothic. We have a couple in the can, but we're trying to ramp back up to the 4 episodes a month.
Nice.
I'm really pushing for it. It might not hit the mark because we are still having some scheduling issues. So it might be like only 3 per month, but we're definitely going to get back on a monthly schedule. And then with Count Creepyhead Saturday Morning Monster Mash, we're also kind of on a scheduling issue because we all have various work schedule problems lately. So we're a little behind on those, but that is coming back as well. So
Yeah.
stay tuned.
Well, I hope so. Yeah, those are always a good time. So I hope the hiatus isn't too long, but of course, everyone needs a break sometimes. So, take it while you can. I listened to the Ghoulies 2 episode, The Boogeyman's Closet. I appreciate going back and doing the redux, to have a clean
Yes.
vocal recording. And but I listened to the whole thing, so I got to hear the older version as well with the sort of echoed audio. But I'm actually glad that you did that because I really liked listening to all of the commentary because you said a few of the same things. Like there's a little bit of a repetition, but they were different enough that it didn't feel like I was just listening to the same episode twice in a row. And I didn't think that the echoey sound effect, obviously that was, a mistake, but I didn't think it sounded bad. Like it was totally easy to listen to.
So I'm glad because I've heard for a few people had said like, oh God, I couldn't listen to that. It was grating. And I'm like, I get it because when I was trying to edit it, I'm like, ah, God! But yeah, like I really wanted to keep that in there because there was some really funny moments in that first recording that I'm like, I don't want to just lose them. So I was like, fuck it. If people want to listen to it, it's there. Um, but I am glad we got to get back together and just chat. At least talk about Ghoulies 2 because it really is an underrated movie. I know it's fucking Ghoulies 2. I get it, but it's fun. It's a very fun flick. I mean, I've watched it like 7 times this summer because of the podcast. But it's like it's weirdly dumb and entertaining and just I don't know. Like I every time I put it on, I'm like, oh, this is gonna take forever, and then before I know it, it's over, and I'm like, oh shit, I was having fun.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I love movies like that too. Plus, I love any movie that you could just put on like whenever and just enjoy it. And it's not fucking Shakespeare, it could be something
yeah.
schlocky or whatever. But I love those types of movies, because yeah, like I said, they're just innocent fun. But anyway, if you had fun with us, visit us on the socials I mentioned before. Drop us a line, leave a comment, leave a podcast rating. Let us know what we should improve next time. And with that, I'm Josh,
Mike.
and we have to return some videotapes.
And, Skank, do me a favor, will you? Get rid of that zombie piss you're drinking.